Hello, what do you know about vermicomposting? What do you know about vermiculture? Do you know anything about it? Well, I didn't know anything about it until 2 or 3 years ago when I started watching gardeners on YouTube. I'd never heard of vermiculture or vermicomposting. I knew that worms were good, I've always known that. I knew that worms were good in your soil, and that a good growing soil would contain lots of worms, and I knew that worm casts were good, but I'd never heard of vermiculture or vermicomposting. So let me tell you what it is, or at least what I think it is, and then let me show you how to do no-cost vermicomposting. How good does that sound? There's no cash outlay. Won't cost you €1, won't cost you $1, won't cost you a Great British pound, won't cost you anything if you do it the way I'm going to suggest it can be done. And it's also free range vermicomposting. In other words, the worms can come and go as they please. Right, okay, so vermicompost or vermicomposting. Well, it's the product of composting or processing using various species of worms, usually red wrigglers or white worms or other earthworms, to create a mixture of decomposing vegetable or food waste, bedding material and vermicast. I think you possibly knew that, did you? Well, vermicast, which is also called worm castings, worm humus, worm manure or worm feces, is the end product of the breakdown of organic matter by earthworms. Hold on to that one, earthworms. These castings have been shown to contain reduced levels of contaminants and a higher saturation of nutrients than the organic materials before vermicomposting. So in other words, the worms are making this used vegetable matter even better by eating it, passing it through their system, leaving it behind for the gardener. Vermicompost contains water-soluble nutrients and is an excellent nutrient-rich organic fertilizer and soil conditioner. Okay, so that's vermiculture, that's vermicompost. Now, what are you going to need if you're going to give this a shot? Well, if you're going to spend some money, if you were prepared to spend some money on this, you'd need a container. You might need several containers. You can purchase them or you can make them, but they will need to be worm tight. In other words, the worms in there might want to leave, so you'd best have a good lid on it. I'd need some drainage to take away any excess liquids. It'll need some ventilation, and it will cost you if you buy one, and it will probably cost you if you make one, unless you've already got the materials there. And at the end of the day, after you've produced some vermicompost, you'll need to be able to separate the worms from the compost, so you'll need a garden sieve or riddle, and if you haven't got one, you'll need to buy one, and if you don't want to buy one, you'll need to make one. But either way, there will be a cost involved, won't there? Okay, and what you're going to do is, if you go that way, you're going to get your container, you're going to put some bedding material in there, you're going to put your worms in there, and then you're going to start putting kitchen scraps in there. The worms are going to eat the kitchen scraps, produce vermicompost. Sounds about right, doesn't it? Okay, well, this is how you're going to do it for zero cost. No cost vermicomposting. Right, this is an ex-cut flower water bucket. It's a 10-inch pot. Okay, I'm betting you've got one of these, or you've got a few of these. You've got them, so there's no cost. Okay, you've already got these. I'm also betting you've got some garden soil. Now, we're talking about earthworms here, so why do we need to buy any worms? Your garden will be full of worms. Your borders, your beds, there will be worms. Move a plant pot, there'll be worms under that plant pot. You've already got worms. Okay, You maybe don't have hundreds or thousands of them, but you've definitely got worms, you've definitely got soil, and I think you've definitely got some of these. Right, so this is stood on a pile of buckets over winter with some chop and drop on top. That's the chop and drop, okay, and it's full of garden soil. Okay, there were some worms in there when I filled these pots, and if the conditions are to their liking, they'll still be in there. If the conditions aren't to their liking, there won't be, they'll have left. There's nothing to keep them in this pot. There's been no lid on it, just this covering of chop and drop, which was, like you can see, there's twigs, there was leaves, that piece of plastic that shouldn't be there, those grass cuttings, those seaweed, just dropped on top of there. So that gave the worms something to eat for the past 6 months. So if there are worms in here, chances are they've been in here 6 months. Now then, this is the smart bit. When we empty this out, we'll do a worm count by the way, but when we empty this out, this is the soil we're going to be growing vegetables in this year in this pot. Okay, so anything that's gone through the worm's digestive system is still in this pot, mixed with this soil. So we've no need to separate the worms from the worm castings. All the goodness is in here, okay, including the worms. And what we're going to do is when we recharge this pot, after we've had a look inside it, when we recharge it, the worms are going back in. They're going back in. We can plant something in this pot with the worms in the pot, and if the worms want to leave, they can, and if they want to stay, they can. That's entirely up to them. And what we can do through the growing season, if this becomes depleted, we can just put some more grass cuttings on top. That might encourage the worms to stay. Okay, so we'll take this top covering off. We'll drop this pot. We'll see what there's any worms. Was there any worms in there? I didn't see any. No, it's quite cold actually, so I wouldn't be surprised if the worms are near the bottom where it's possibly warmer, if there are any. Okay, and then we'll put them in a container. We'll see what we've got. Okay, now I'm going to take my gloves off for this, not because I like getting my hands dirty, but because it's easier to pick worms up without gloves. And I can see a few now I'm going to pick up and pop in this jar just until we get finished here. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, there's quite a few. Now I didn't put these guys in, these guys were in the garden soil when the garden soil went in here. And they've stayed in this pot for the past 6 months. Do you fancy giving this a go? Do you fancy getting your hands dirty? Picking worms up? They're a bit squeamish. Okay, well, we don't seem to have got a lot, and I suspect there's more in here, but I just can't see them. See that big guy, we nearly missed him. I don't know if anybody's counting her yet. I'm not. Alright. Okay. So, there's another. Just pop this in here. See what these worms look like. I know I always say this on every video, but I'm going to say it again. There'll be no worms killed in the making of this video. You see them? So, I don't know what variety of worms those are. They're a bit sluggish, as I've said, because it's cold. They didn't have to stay in that soil. They could have, oh, here's another. They could have, told you I wouldn't get them all. They could have left that soil at any point. There was no lid on there. That's something they can't do with a commercial setup with a lid on. They just can't leave. They're there. These guys have chose to stay. They've done some good work on that soil. That soil's ready to go now. That soil's going back into that pot, and we're going to grow vegetables in that pot. I'm not ready to sow anything just yet. I'm not ready to plant anything just yet, but I thought I'd shoot this short video and talk about vermiculture, vermicomposting, and this no-cost, free-range vermicomposting. Give it a shot. You've got everything you need. You've got these guys in the soil in your garden. That's the soil from your garden. You will have a plant pot. You'll be cutting your grass later this year. You'll have leaves, you'll have kitchen scraps. Just pop it on top of the pot and the worms will do the rest, won't they? The worms will do the rest. Okay, we'll just return them to that soil. Nearly missed these two. We'll let them find a way back in there, then we'll return them to that pot. And as I've said, as soon as the weather picks up a bit, once we get rid of the beast from the east, we'll plant something. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do vermiculture, if you do vermicomposting, and you've got a proper setup, send us a comment. Let me know what you think about this free range vermicomposting. This is how nature does it. This is exactly how nature does it. Worms living in the soil, pulling down dead vegetation, eating it, and leaving some good stuff behind. This is exactly how nature does it. So this is how we're doing it at Homegrown Veg. This is Homegrown Veg, signing out.